Hey, it's school choice week in America. What does that mean for you? What does that mean for the country? What does that mean for black, brown, poor people on the other side? Go. Hello there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the South Star Classroom. That's Jubilee. That's David. Our resident supermodel, Omar Yanar, is in somebody's mountain somewhere, jet setting. And at some point, he's going to do a travel blog. And we are really, really here for it and happy for it. I'm throwing it over to David, man, because it is choice week. David is the person I know that just been hitting on this stuff for the longest. I'm one of his pups in this. So Jubilee, you and I just gonna go on for this ride.
Let's
beard
go.
Of wisdom, beard of knowledge. Take us away, good brother.
Let's
All right.
go.
Thank you, Charles. Good to be here. Good to see you, Jubilee. And thanks everybody who's listening to us. We want to make sure the show's interactive today. So we're going to be talking about school choice, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we definitely want your feedback in the comments. So yeah, this is episode of the South Star Classroom, I think number 78. Let's start with check-ins, and then we'll transition into our topic. So let's see. I know Charles has been on the road. He's got some weather stuff going on. Let's start with you, Dr. Cole. How you doing?
Yeah, man, I've been good. I think weather is caught. I think the travel and the weather has caught up to me. I was in Indianapolis. I was giving a talk with Ed Choice around school choice week. I was moderating a talk, so to speak, and got news that they were having a weather system, which was pretty mild, but I got news that it was coming to Chicago and it was not mild. So I beat the snowstorm, baby. But right now it's beautiful. If you're a kid and you ain't got to go nowhere, it's like the snow is going sideways. You can make all kind of, you know what I'm saying, snowmen. And if you're not like fiscally liable to like, to shovel, the snow off of your driveway and your porch, you can have a lot of fun with it. Fun fact, Jubilee and David, even though I was born in the Chicago area, I am new to being an adult here, and you are liable for any snow, your mailman, anybody that got to service things on your property if you don't get your snow shoveled. So can't just let the snow pile up. For those that did not know.
I didn't know that. That's crazy.
I learned.
Not surprising.
The mailman told me that they would, because one time I was being cheap last year, and the mailman was like, "No, we won't. Not only will we not deliver if you don't shovel this. If one of us trips and fall, you are liable." So it's good to know.
Okay. Wow, that's a different living. Okay. I never even thought about that. All right, Jubilee, how are you doing?
I am doing well, and Doc has me reflecting on why I am not back into homeownership for myself yet, because I don't want to be shoveling nobody's snow at all. No. I don't want, and I enjoy the freedom that this brings because I understand that, right? Very much so. It was like that in New York. Not sure what it is like in Maryland, but
Jubilee, you have a child, right?
I have two, yeah. But
and one of them
they're 11 and 13
Wait,
now.
one of them is a boy, right? One or both
of them, yes.
They're old enough to shovel snow.
You're not shoveling anything.
Well, when they were younger, you know how
no, we don't.
Kids, no.
Well, David, how old is your son, David?
Well,
He's
when
12.
they're younger, it's like, okay, mommy, I want to help you. Like they come outside with a little plastic show and they're just like picking it up. It's like, oh, you're so sweet. But like that still leaves mommy with most of the work to do. Like you're just cute and I'm going to take pictures of you, but I need you to go inside right now because you're more of a distraction than you are a help. But God bless your little heart. But the next time, when I purchase a home for us next time, they'll be in it to win it. And thank you for that reminder, because sometimes I forget. All the women who's independent, throw your hands up that man. I'm so used to that being the sound check of my life that I sometimes forget.
I heard that. David, tell us about you and if your 12-year-old son would be shoveling the snow for you and your wife or not. I'm curious.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, I've got him. He works with me around the house. I got him on yard duty, raking. We just did a bunch of like outdoor renovation, so he's like moving rock for me and like
Yes.
yeah, manual making him work.
Earn your keep.
Um, yeah, for sure. So let's see. The week I had an IEP meeting this week. For people that don't know, an individualized education plan. So I was there as a parent, and it was a big one. Every 3 years, you go through this cycle. It's called a triennial. So they do all the testing again, all the evaluations, all the assessments, and then explore whether or not your child still needs an IEP or needs like services adjusted. And this can be very like anxiety inducing for a parent. You're like, what's going to happen? I've sat in IEPs as a teacher, I've sat in IEPs as a principal, and I've sat in IEPs as a parent. So I've sat in the different seats. But all that to say, it went incredibly smoothly. The staff at my son's school, they're on point. They were all there. All the people that needed to be there were there. Took about an hour and a half, and I just, we like walked out of the meeting, and my wife and I like pinched ourselves. We're like, is this real? Like this is like very everything from the content and their analysis and their recommendations to their like customer service or whatever you want to call that, like very much like we're here to help you. And my son's resource teacher, his case manager, we were talking about a schedule change for him, and she says, I'll be the point contact. When that happens, you reach out to me. She's like, I really, these are my kids are my kids, they're my babies, and I really want to be involved in any of the changes that happen to them. And I said, every kid deserves a quarterback like that in school. And she just demonstrated like what it really means when the adults are just like in it for the kids. It was something else. I thought it was a setup, but turned out they're just doing their jobs.
That's beautiful, man. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
And so related to that, my son's in the sixth grade. And so the seventh grade, sorry. And, in a year from now, we'll be applying to high schools. And so they start talking about different high schools and what we're looking for. This is a public school. And they're like, well, there's this school, there's that school, there's this other school, it's a charter school, there's this private school. Like, these are public school teachers just kind of laying out the landscape with all kinds of schools. And so we started doing our research, and a lot of the districts around here will have the charter schools like on their website, which is really cool. And I feel like I'm a little delayed in the video. Am I delayed in the audio too?
No, I mean, but just keep going. You're good. Yeah. Okay. Just keep. All right. Yeah, you're good. We can make it out.
So we're starting to experience like school choice as a parent. Do we want to go district? Do we want to go charter? Do we want to go private? And a lot of the districts, they're well coordinated. So they're like, here are the district schools and here are the charter schools, right? At least they put all the public schools together. And then you have to do your own private school research on your own. But it was interesting because I'm like, here we are doing research around schools and our choices. And then I think back, Charles, to like what they're doing in Oakland by trying to really like separate the district from the charter schools, making it much more harder for parents. And all of this is happening during school choice week. So I wanted to bring this topic forward, just to have a short conversation around what school choice is. It means different things in different places. And right now what we're seeing is a number of Republican-led red states that are moving quickly on legislation after having been victorious in different election cycles, to put bills straight up to the governors of like Utah, I think Florida, Texas, Iowa, and a couple of others, right? Like universal school choice, basically. Here's private money, here's public money. You can take it and you can attend, basically any kind of school that you want to, which brings up a number of issues, at least for me, I question the intent of this current wave of school choice. I'm not sure it's authentic. I'm not sure if they're thinking about, students that are struggling in school, Black and brown students, special education students. It feels like this current wave has gotten caught up in the culture wars, school closures. People are upset, and Republicans want to free the people from the government. But I'm like, you are the government. You're an elected official, right? And are you abandoning your post as an elected official to allow people to use public money to attend private schools that lack some general pieces of accountability? Is one of my concerns. So stop there. I wanted to get your quick reflections on this. Like when you hear School Choice Week, and people are celebrating legislative wins across the country. I know, Charles, you were just at an event with Ed Choice. What does that mean to you? Hop in.
Yeah. I think for me, it's I think there is a lot of politics there, and it looks like our comments or whatever StreamYard seem to be tripping because I just put a comment out and it's not coming through. But stay with us. Keep your comments coming. Maybe it'll end up pushing through. So yeah, that's just the regular.
Yeah,
it's all good. So for me, I look at this very differently. I know that there's a lot of people, like I said, it's high political stakes here, and everything is political. I get that. Even eggs are political right now, so I completely understand. It's an active war. It's $14 eggs in cartons. So all those folks that got egg, Sharif from A Black Hands has a chicken coop, and he is killing right now. But I think for me, what it boils down to is, do I have options around where I would send my kids and without somebody telling me what I had to do? And it's a personal thing for me because I remember when my mother, who had a record and been to jail before, and my father had been to jail before. I remember, and the area, David, when I was graduating from Westlake Junior High School, she wanted me to go to Berkeley High. Berkeley High just has a lot of resources and amenities. It probably ain't the best place if you poor and Black and don't know how to navigate schools, but it does. It was built by UC Berkeley or in conjunction, or it has some close ties. And so my mother went the route. She tried to get an interdistrict transfer, and she was denied. And a lot of people at my church, so to speak, a lot of my good church folk had used just they relatives' addresses. And, my mother was just at the end of her rope and was going to try to do that. And, somebody let her know, hey, if we catch you, like you got denied for this interdistrict transfer. If you get caught using the wrong address, that's fraud. You can go to jail for that. And I mean, when we talk about a lot of things that we see people do all kind of insider trading and do a whole bunch of stuff. And, you know what I'm saying? But you can go to jail for trying to put your kid in different type of schools. And so choice doesn't mean charter over traditional for me. It doesn't mean private over. It just means being able to look at all these things and be able to have some options. And even within traditional. So Oakland has become a place where you can pick which school you want. But there's a lot of cities where you are relegated to your zip code, which school you have to attend. And there's legal consequences if you don't. And, so I don't know if I necessarily celebrate the week per se. I talk about it all the time. I really wasn't even aware. I mean, I know that the week happens. I couldn't tell you unless somebody put it on my calendar. But what it does signify to me is just a little bit of agency, just a little bit of resolve that people can have in making a choice for what they want and what they need. So that's my reflection.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm with it. I'm on both sides of this thing. So I'm kind of still reflecting. A part of me feels like, how realistic is it, to give somebody a voucher or to give somebody some kind of, tax relief or, the option, but where their options are is very limited, to where they live. And so if Doc was saying, if we live in this community and my choice is relegated to this community, do I really, really have a choice? I can't necessarily go all the way over to the side of town that has, better schools. So that's one thought. The other thing I was thinking of is the fact that I have taught in traditional public school, led in both charter and public, traditional public school. And I have had my sons in both traditional public and charter school. And the only reason that I transitioned them, because the school that they went to was a school that I led in, and had a good thing going. Because remember, like in the last episode, I talked about we just wanted to be a strong community school. We weren't perfect. There was still so many things that needed to be worked out. But the idea was that if you live in this zip code, you have a great school to go to right down the block from you. You didn't have to drive outside of the community to find a school where educators cared and where there was accountability and lots of room for both academic and social emotional growth. So the only reason I moved them was because I believe that there were better learning opportunities for them in the charter school. But it took me forever to get them in that school. And I got them in because one of my sons got in through lottery. And so then by default, my other son got in. I'm like, oh, we out. And that's how that happened. Smaller school, like all the things that I'd be looking for, more extracurricular activities, smaller class sizes, et cetera, et cetera. And so, I see the whole school choice thing from both both places, as a parent and as a leader. But it just makes me feel like, what's really behind this? When we talk about the politics and the bureaucracy and the money, it's like, what is the push really for? And when are we going to start talking about fixing the baseline? Like, when are we going to decide what as a nation is good? Not even education, what good learning opportunities are for our children across the board, so that it doesn't matter where you live, what your zip code is, what your ethnicity is, you're going to at least get that. And whatever that baseline is going to be phenomenal. It's going to be relevant, right? It's going to be applicable to the fourth, the fourth, what is it? What do we call it? I'm getting a brain blank. Revolution. Fourth industrial revolution. I couldn't think of the word. Right? Like, it's going to be applicable and relevant to, the workforce that we are creating. So that's where I am. I just feel like school choice in some ways is freeing, and in other ways it is responding to symptoms and still not addressing the root, which is, why can't we just have solid, good education and learning opportunities no matter where you live? Right. And then if you want something above that, like for me, education, for me, I'm like, I want schools to change the attendance policy so that if I want to take my sons to Tanzania, right, for them to experience a real life safari, that wouldn't be counted against them, because that's education, right? But right now, that's not necessarily, capable, or they don't necessarily consider that a part. So why can't we get together and talk about what learning experiences are, and then build that in so that the baseline can be met and we can stop responding to symptoms of a problem?
Yep. Yeah. I think if you look at it like from the perspective of a parent, it makes all the sense in the world. Yeah, I want to have as many options as I can have. And I think that for me, my parents attended school in South Texas, and it was very much like the schools in the South. You had schools for white children and schools for Black children. In South Texas, you had schools for white children, and then you had schools for Black and brown children. And there was no like, I want to opt into the better school. It was like, no, you live here and you go to that school, and they were not equal. And for me, when I was in like the elementary school, my mom, had some agency. She had some familiarity with the process to get me transferred out of my neighborhood public school, because it was like quickly devolving into an unsafe situation, and literally got me into another district school on the other side of the proverbial tracks. It was the freeway. And so, yeah, I mean, we exercised school choice a long time ago, but we had some level of agency. And so my thoughts on this are, kind of going back to what you said, like if Jubilee, what if you don't have transportation? What if, there isn't, and what if you don't even know where to look for different schools? So your default is like the local neighborhood school. And if it's not a good school, it's likely you can have kids there that are just there because that's the only school they think they can go to. Whereas other parents might be aware that you can opt into other schools, or maybe there's a charter How do you get there? All of these things come up for me. And now when you add in like private school choice, now I'm starting to think my kid has an IEP. What if, how do we know that they're like not screening kids out? We don't. What about their like discipline and suspension and expulsion due process policies? Probably not a whole lot of due process. And so it's interesting because we could talk about choice in the public system, but when you start to get into the private school world, and I'm not going to make any assumptions, I don't know enough about it. It starts to open up a lot of those questions that people had about charters when charters came in, using public money to fund charter schools. They don't have to follow the rules. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. But I do think there are going to be losers, especially when, like you said, Jubilee, everybody doesn't have equal access to a good school. And so there is no baseline. And so you are going to have losers, children, families, communities, because when you have public district, public charter, and private schools, and now we have micro schools and home schools and whatever the next thing is, if there's no coordination across all of those systems, it's essentially cutthroat capitalism, competition, Wild West for parents, right, and for children. So,
but ain't it that now? Oh, y'all prepare not to like me. We gonna fight today, y'all. We about to fight today. I'm gonna just say this. Prepare not to like me, because this is the thing. I did this. I was in this documentary, and one of the hosts on it said this, but I've said this before too. Like during slavery, during just slavery, right? Like white people could do anything they wanted to their slave, anything, anything, except teach them how to read, anything. And then we got schools right after slavery. These poor people, many of them uneducated, scraped all the little bread they had, all the little money, and built these little one-room schools, and which would end up, the reason there is free public education in the South is because of free slave people. Education of Blacks in the South by Dr. James E. Anderson is an incredible book, right? People with wealth and power have always had choice of the type of schools that they send their kids to, always. Right. It's never been the concept. I'm not talking about charter schools. I'm not talking about private schools. I'm not talking about vouchers. I am just talking about the simple concept of, that's mine. I'm in charge of this little life here. I don't like this school and I don't like this one. It's it's going to become competition. And I get that. But you know what? Everything in this country competes for your attention, your time, and your money. Why is it that the one thing that is supposed to nourish my brain, educate me, set me up on a path to success, why shouldn't it be competing? If you are terrible, if you suck, and there's a better option, I should be able to do that. Now, that don't mean I think one thing is better than the other one. I've seen good traditional schools. I've seen trash ones. I've seen good charter schools. I've seen trash ones. I've seen good private schools. I've seen trash ones. I'm just saying, let me why can't I be competed for? Listen, when I order Uber Eats, I get something 20 minutes after they drop off my food asking me how I like their delivery. Private schools ask their kids and their parents, how you like our school? The traditional schools that I went to was not asking me, hey, Charles, how are you enjoying your educational experience here? How's that going for you? And I'm just saying, man, when you ask when is about the baseline, Jubilee, I appreciate it. I think it's the right question. I think it's a question that's been asked long before we were born, and they're going to be asking it long after we're gone. And I think that I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer here, y'all. I'm not, but I want to live in fact, and I want to live in the reality of it. I went to 11 elementary schools. A few of them were good, but many of them were terrible. And a lot of the kids were there because they had to be there. And guess what? If one of those kids could play ball good enough, maybe they got a scholarship to Saint something, to Saint something. These people Baptist as hell. And it's but send my baby to Saint something. And all I'm saying is we tend to have a lot of sympathy and empathy for a system and for its schools and for the adults in the building that got degrees and for people that run those systems that make six figures. But to hell with those kids, to hell with those parents and what they think and what they want. And if they're not choosing what you want them to choose, then we got to make it harder for them. That I don't. So anyway, not to get emotional in this, but this is a podcast and we talking and we going there, and you can push back on me. But when I'm hearing about choice, that don't mean I rock with DeSantis. I want choice so I don't have to put my kid in one of those schools that's impacted by what a DeSantis is trying to do. Like,
oh,
I agree.
That's a crazy angle.
No, and I'm not. Yeah, I'm not. And I didn't necessarily disagree with anything that you all said, but I'm trying to talk about this in simple terms because the public discourse around this has been hijacked and it looks uber white, uber Republican. I don't rock with them cats over there. But this is where I do agree. You don't want certain things taught to your kids. You don't want them to know about CRT. You don't want them to know about slavery. You don't want them to, you know what? I think they should. Them your babies. Yep. Cool. With my black kids or my brown kids or my Asian kids, can we have a space for us that teaches us about who we are and what we want to see and what we want to do? And can we get to a place? I'm even cool with this, and this might be controversial. If you cool with doing what you do over there in your house and I do over here in my house, I'm fine. I know how to mind my business. I used to live in the South. All I'm saying is people gonna say that's segregation. That's segregation. And I just would want to say this about the segregation piece and then I'll shut up. I won't shut up, but I'll stop. I'll breathe so other people can speak. Let me tell you what segregation is, people. Segregation is being told what I have to do, not given a choice. Segregation is there's two water fountains. This water fountain is for white people, and this water fountain is for you, for the rest of y'all. Me having agency and choice is me being able to look at all the water fountains, and if I self-select not to use the one that you got, that's my choice, and that's what I wanted to do. And I just feel like sometimes we conflate those two things. Choice by itself will not save or fix or be is not a silver bullet or anything like that. But damn, y'all, like Jubilee and David got kids that they had that they're responsible for, that they got to pay for, that is when they not with them, their heart is out walking around and they can't protect them. At least let them pick how they educated.
We need sound effects on here.
Yeah, we need sound board.
I ain't mean to go here, man.
We need that. No, I'm with you. I just think that all of these issues that we talk about, it's like it always comes down to the have and the have-nots, right? Mm-hmm. Like school choice becomes an option to a parent who knows such a thing exists. Like, and so I'm always thinking like duality, right? So it's like, okay, school choice, cool, along with accountability. Because school choice without, parents knowing about it or the community being aware of it and without accountability, it's just a setup. To me, it's a setup. Where are you going? What are we doing?
I love it. I love it. Please keep going. I love you, Jubilee. Welcome. Let me give you the screen. Right? Accountability. I'm with it.
Let's plug this book, okay? So
yeah, we gotta get Jubilee's banner up there. There you go.
I mean, right? Hi. But like that's what it has me thinking about. It's like in order for school choice to be like this roundabout solution, we've got to address the other pieces. Because it's like, okay, cool. We don't want it to be Jim Crow. We don't want it to be segregation. So we're like, all right, we're gonna stop segregation. Y'all can use these water fountains. But the water fountains are yellow and old and decrepit, and a quarter of the water that should be coming out comes out. But go ahead, that's your water fountain. So it's just like, no, we've got to fix the water fountain. We've got to level the playing field in order for school choice to really be a solution. Otherwise, we're just still addressing the symptoms, and it still becomes a game of the have and have-nots. And if it's not a game about have and have-nots in terms of socioeconomic status, then it is one about knowledge, because I didn't know. So I wake up, or like to Dave's point earlier when he piggybacked off what I said, like I can't take my kid 20 miles further because that's going to make me 10 minutes late for work. And if I'm 10 minutes late for work again, I'm finna lose my job, right? So it's just like, when can we get to a space where we have a more well-rounded conversation? Again, this is always my like running ticket, that all of the stakeholders need to be at the table when we're talking about these kinds of shifts in education, so that we can have the multiple perspectives and say, actually, we didn't consider that. right? So it's like, again, is school choice really a school choice? If one, I don't know that it exists, or two, I'm relegated to where my zip code. So when I said that I took my children from the public traditional elementary school that I was AP of that school, right? I left them there after I transitioned and became a principal. I left them in the school because the learning opportunities was still good. When I saw that this joint was going left, I was like, oh, we got to go. But guess what? I put them in a charter school. It was in the same community, very close to the same zip code. And so we had that accessibility. And so it became, who's pushing into my community? I taught in the same community and I led in the same community I grew up in. But I didn't go to schools in that community.
Oh, I mean, I love this. David, you better get in there.
What I'm thinking of? I'm thinking of
because I have beautiful rebuttals for the beautiful Jubilee.
Yeah.
So
I'm thinking
get
of
in there because you will not be able to get in if you don't now.
I'm thinking of like this current movement around school choice in the red states, and the first thing that comes to my mind is the SNL skit with Eddie Murphy when he paints his skin white and he goes around, essentially being a white man, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, I didn't know this world existed, right? He gets on the bus and they're like, no, man, it's free. Have some champagne, and he goes to the store and they're like, he gets his money out and he's like, what are you doing, man? It's free. Just take it. This is exactly kind of where my brain goes. But, I was also thinking about like, I did a little bit of research on like school choice and some of the early theories. So Milton Friedman is a famous American like scholar, policy guy, an economist, right? And he did a lot of thinking and writing around free markets, consumers, the open market, and if you let consumers and the marketplace interact with one another in an open environment, kind of free of restrictions, the belief was that the marketplace will continue to improve services that the people want and need, right? Basic concept. And so, they started applying this thing to like school choice way back when. And some of these people, actually, there are people out there whose desire is to authentically defund and destroy public education, right? This is true. There are people out there. They're like, we can create enough other pathways, get away from government sponsored schooling and just give people money, and then they can use it in whatever form they want. It's a pretty radical idea, but it's actually happening right now. And so my question for both of you is like, if you're a politician, you are a representative of the people, but you are essentially the government. And so when you have small government minded Republicans pushing school choice, like, is that a dereliction of their duty? Are they just like basically abandoning their position of their responsibility to say like, hey, I'm going to elect a politician. It's my responsibility to make sure that we have good public schools for every kid, or is that some kind of like dereliction of duty? Because I do believe that every child should have access to a good public school on the corner.
Listen, first thing I would say to those politicians is, where do you put your kids in school?
Are
your kids in one of the best traditional public schools in the area, or a private school? So this is the thing. All this hoopla, all this stuff was not coming at private schools, which have been around since the dawn of education in this country. I think that's one. And I'm gonna get to your answer, but it's wrapped up in this, David. Jubilee mentioned accountability and like people having a lack of knowledge. We have always been hurt and at the mercy of our lack of knowledge around certain things. Magnet schools have been around since you were a kid, David. Like, you know what I'm saying? That's not a new concept anymore. And a lot of people in them areas did not know about magnet schools. And if they did know about them, didn't know how to get in them or those things, right? There's always been scholarships for certain type of schools. So so when we talk about this lack of knowledge, it has hurt us. It is hurting us, and it will continue to hurt us, right? Like, but I don't think that's a reason to not have this school choice. And here's what I also think, right? Accountability was what you said, and I appreciate it. I'm so happy that you said that. I wish traditional public schools were held as accountable as charter schools. I wish if traditional public schools had to go up for renewal every 5 years, and in a system where 2 out of 10 Black boys is reading on grade level, I would love to see that level of accountability for all these different types of schools, but it's not like that, right? It is these charter schools, and if they're bad, shut them down. They get out, and guess what? In Oakland, sometimes they shut down the ones that's actually good.
Yeah.
But the other school can be up for 80 years, have all these black people with all white teachers for 80, 90 years. And then, oh, it's the funding, it's this and it's that. So if we're gonna hold accountable, if we're gonna have the accountability conversation, then let's have it. And I would end with this around that politician, right? What I would tell that politician is, again, what choices are you making for your own kid, and what choices do you want to be able to be made for the people in your community? Because what they're going off of is this false pretense and this false notion. I even call it a false dichotomy that these other schools, charter schools, are stealing resources from traditional public schools. Now, let me drop something on you real quick.
I've never heard that argument. I've never heard that.
You know, I know you haven't. I know you haven't, right? That money that goes to school does not belong to that school.
Right.
It does not belong to that system. It belongs to those people. You cannot steal that which is yours. So if I have a kid and I put my kid in this school, then that money that for my kid goes to that school. You know what I'm saying? You can't say, well, they stealing resources. No, because you don't own my child. You don't own my child. And again, and you can advocate for these things and still advocate for better funding in education, for better accountability, for more black and brown teachers, to raise the standards. And I do think that we need more diversity in schools. And I'm not just talking about color. What I'm talking about is when Katrina happened, imagine with me, if you will, y'all. What if when they said, you know what, this is crazy. What if they built schools that had the learning in it, where you were still college prep and you graduated and you could still go to a college, but they had all the jobs that was needed to rebuild New Orleans? You can make a choice with that as well. So you can learn carpentering, you can learn plumbing, you can learn this. And what if those young people were able to graduate with the hard skills to build their town, to build their town back up? And oh, by the way, they can still go to college afterward if they want to, but if they didn't decide to go, they running into $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year jobs, because guess what? I don't care how much of a recession you in, everybody toilet gets stopped up and it's $300 to have somebody come look at it. So I think if I was a politician and my heart was really in it and I didn't care just about getting voted back in, but actually making a difference, I would actually be logical, empathetic, and I would try to be an adult and put out real solutions at the risk of never being elected again. That's what I would do, brother.
You know what I would ask that politician? I would ask that politician to move over and let South Star Classroom sit there and advise them, since we are practitioners in the field, because why are y'all up here making these decisions for education when you guys are not connected to the fields at all, in almost no way, outside of, perhaps your kids, being in school, but they're not necessarily in the system. So that's what I would say to that politician. Also, I want to read Jeff Livingston. He put a comment in the chat on Facebook, and he wrote, there are a lot more private schools than charter schools in the USA. Why is there no discussion of limiting those or eliminating them altogether, like in Finland? Because wealthy white people are presumed to know what is best for their kids, and poor Black and Latino families apparently need the rest of us to decide for them.
There you go.
Well, listen.
Yeah.
Before you hop in, because a lot of times, you know what I'm saying, this stuff is stressful, man, and people get stressed out and their blood get boiling. You know what I'm saying? And you talked about an ignorance or a lack of knowledge around certain things, and sometimes we don't know how to breathe or meditate, which leads us to one of our sponsors.
Do you feel overwhelmed with an invincible feeling of sadness? At Meditative Bliss, we will help you overcome the inexplicable stress you get from the boring routine chores and attain the solace and inner peace your soul has been yearning for. This innovative medium will be a source of the most peaceful and relaxing free music. So get ready to experience a euphoric treat for your spirit. Visit us on YouTube and Spotify anytime. Meditative Bliss. Serene your soul.
And that's free.
There you go.
Ahead, David.
This conversation about this last conversation from Jeff Livingston, thank you for your comment, about private schools, brings me to So this is now like the extremes of school choice or using public money to fund any kind of private schooling. There was a really good piece last September in the New York Times. The title is "In Hasidic Enclaves, Failing Private Schools Are Flush with Public Money." We're talking about like upwards of $1 billion in government funding in the last 4 years to fund private Hasidic schools in the New York City area. And they some of these schools opted in to do the state testing, and they're cranking out like 0% proficiency, which is really interesting because yeah, that's definitely an issue, but you can also point to um, public school districts that are flush with money, public money, because they're public institutions with maybe not 0% proficiency, but in Oakland Unified and in LAUSD, sub 5%, sub 10%, right? So I just thought that I'm looking at this article and thinking like, yeah, that's wrong, but it's also wrong to continue to fund and fail to improve district schools that are essentially not teaching children.
Agreed.
I agree. I didn't know if you was about to jump in there, Jubilee. And feel free. Just you ain't a guest no more. So all that like here, it's but I would just say this, man. I think that again, I don't favor any system. I actually don't care about. I don't cape for any of these systems. I really don't. I just really care about people, and if it's a good school, great. If it's not, then do what you got to do with it. You know what I'm saying? And it's really that simple for me. I don't have the luxury for my people's sake, like to be able to play politics in this. And like, so they'll say stuff. They'll be like, well, charter schools are racist and this, that, and the third. Like, what the hell you think traditional public schools came from? When they say systemic racism, that means it is embedded in almost everything. There's not much in there are I can't think of any institution like that is in this country that does not have some type of racist root. Like somebody tell me again about the unions. Cool. Let me tell you how unions were started. It was started because these free black people was about to come and get these jobs, and they said, yo, we need something to protect these white folks that's in these places to make sure that they still got. Oh, that's how that works. Wait a second. Tell me about the armed services, to which I'm a kid. I come from a military family. Wait a second. You can go serve your country, but only the white people getting the GI bills. The black people can't get that. Like, I have so many people in my family. I have no GI money. There's no GI stuff go to help me pay this, right? Like, so what I'm saying is that we got to start having adult conversations, and I am all for having the larger conversation of when can we create and fix and build all of it. But sadly, I'm in survival mode, and when you're in survival mode, you don't get to look like that in the future. You got to kind of figure out, things for right now that may not be the best later on down the line. But we got to start having real conversations for it. My people are in survival mode as far as education is concerned. And there's a few people that get out, and there's a lot of them that get out and get into private schools and then they become politicians and then talk this union public talk all day and night. And they kids ain't stepping foot on it. And that's the first question for me all the time, always.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you literally have Republican, and I'm not harping on Republicans. I'm just saying, like, this is the activity right now. Republican governors celebrating the passage of their own statewide like school choice policies, and like tweeting at Randy Weingartner, from the American Federation of Teachers, like they're going back and forth, right? The governor of Iowa, having a Twitter battle with Randy Weingartner. I'm like, oh, is this really happening, people? Can we all just like get in a room and figure this out? It's pretty predictable, but yeah, I mean, a lot of this stuff too, like what we're experiencing right now, like I said earlier, it feels like this is an extension of the culture wars, right? So regardless of like, you have your experience, you support school choice here and now. Really, what's happening is, this modern day like push and the I don't want to get too political, but the movement of Republicans to a more extreme position is coming out of what is at least perceived to be the extended school closures that tended to be like more heavy in Democratic areas, right? That Republicans are now taking advantage of. And I just think it's crazy, you know. I mean, you think you talk about Florida. I mean, so DeSantis is the governor of Florida. He's you know, banning X, Y, and Z. Now they're like taking books out of schools, or like you have to cover up. They don't even want books in the classrooms, right?
Right.
I mean, I think that's really happening. And at the same time, opening the floodgates to school choice, right? I'm like, are you the governor of all the people, or are you, you know, like it feels like an abandonment of public schooling in Florida, right? Which is a radical example. And you know, I'm not either side. I believe in school choice, but I also believe it's a really easy out for politicians just to like pull the trigger and say, yeah, we're going to do universal school choice. I'm like, no, it's your job as a politician to ensure that government is working for the people, you know? And so I do take issue with that. I'm like, it's a dereliction of duty in a certain way. But right now, people are riding that political wave. And again, when the elephants fight, right, the grass gets stomped,
It's the grass
right?
that suffers, baby.
Yeah, and this is us, right? This is our children.
It is.
Give us some wisdom, Jubilee. You can come at me if you need to, so I'm fine. I'm ready for it. Come on.
I'm neither. I have to say that I'm for school choice because I've utilized it, you know, for my children, right? So I can't say that I'm against it. I just really feel like it's still a race game. It still comes down to the haves and the have-nots, and that my wondering still exists. My wondering.
Can I push you? Take choice out of it. Take tradition. Take charter schools out of it. You can take private schools out of it.
Sure.
Is everything that you said still 100% the truth?
It's about the haves and the have-nots.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's my point. And I want you to finish, but
yeah,
because that argument gets heaped on top of this other thing. But I'm like, but it's that's true without choice. That's true without like a charter school in that place, or even take out charter and private schools. That's true with just choice districts, right? Like that's true with like, okay, you know, ain't no charters or private schools here, but who gets to get into these better traditional schools versus these not so good schools? That, I guess what I was saying was, I don't know if that's an argument against choice or if that's just a standing argument about education, but it always gets placated on top of the choice conversation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. Yeah, which is why I'm like, listen, I think that we should be able to take our children wherever we feel is best suited for them. I just feel like I guess because of the way I see life, right? It's neither black nor white, and I'm always trying to look at the middle. And it's like, how can we make this a win-win? Like, does a win-win exist in school choice, right? And to what you were saying earlier about, and I kind of touched on it too, the whole accountability piece. I'm still kind of annoyed that hasn't made its way across the nation, right? In New York, we've been ahead of this game for a little bit, I have to say. So we had the accountability measures, right? So we had quality reviews, you know, or some kind of annual review, and then one every 3 years, and then one every 5 years. So I had that experience on the quality review side in the traditional public school in New York and in a charter school. If you wanted to, if you wanted your school to stay open, you had to still go through a charter renewal process, right? And that was, you know, probably some kind of preview around a school year, 3 years, 5 years, same thing. So I think that's my wondering. Like, it's the accountability piece around it. And in terms of like the whole Republican piece, the political piece, it's like,
oh, she froze at like a really good part.
She was gonna go off. That was it. Yeah.
I know. She you know, she was dropping the mic on us, but and I don't know if Jube can still hear us. I'll pull her down until she can come back on. But
yeah, I think I mean, what she was just talking about also makes me think like, you know, And so my orientation around all of this is like having been a charter school teacher and a principal. And so we've had to go through the 5-year renewal process as a school. You got to be academically sound, operationally sound, fiscally sound, and you have to have enrollment, right? You're meeting a need. It's a very basic concept, but what would it look like if we applied that to all public schools, right? What would it look like in this like unregulated like choice environment if we had kind of a light version of a renewal for all schools, right? Public, private, run everybody through kind of not an accreditation. Accreditation, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about an actual like renewal compliance process to make sure
You know
that
why? Because there'll be so many damn schools are closed down. It's too big to fail. That's why you don't. Because they're closed down. That's why you don't
now,
have.
what is he over here ranting about now? What happened?
Oh,
No. That's why he said he was giving credence to what you said, which he agreed with, right? It was talking about sweeping accountability, and I told him what would actually happen in the market if sweeping accountability.
If we had like a renewal process for all kinds of schools.
But that would be awesome.
You would lose so many schools. That they would be gone.
Well, let me tell you about the school that I helped to run in Brooklyn, New York, right?
Is this a traditional or a charter?
Traditional, right?
Okay.
I mean, and I run both, right? But you know, the traditional public school is the one that has all the red tape and bureaucracy in ways that are more restrictive than charter school, as we know, right? So that's why I even used school choice for where I led, because I wanted the autonomy to make decisions for children that I felt would be in their best interest. When people go, why didn't you run a traditional public? No, because I don't want to be in handcuffs. I want to be able to make decisions for children that's going to help them. But anyway, this school was like a turnaround school. I didn't realize it when I first, joined as an assistant principal, but it was an old neighborhood school, and the school was sucking. Right? Kids were coming out, they weren't reading. The behavior issues were like unimaginable. And what New York started a process called the new school, like a new school application process. And basically it was like they were taking kind of new like leaders that were on the cutting edge, very, very motivated to like take on these kinds of schools and go in with a really clear mission, vision, and turn the school around. And so essentially the old school, right, because of the data, because of the lack of proficiency, because of the lack of accountability, because of the lack of systems, right, and because they had likely received some level of state support, city support to get its act together and did not, was closed down. The building was kept, the children were kept, some of the educators were kept, but they allowed some flexibility there, right, that the principal coming in would have some autonomy on who was able to stay based on their rating or what have you, right? So you inherited a lot, but you also had some kind of space to recreate, and you started a new school. Hell of a hard thing to do. But it sent a message that even if you are a traditional school, if you are sucking, and these babies are coming in here every day, and their lives are not improving as a result of them having walked in and out of these doors on a daily basis, it's only a matter of time before we shut you down.
Yep.
I would love
that's the school I led. Let me tell you something, and it still wasn't perfect. That's the school that I supported as an assistant principal. And when I left, we had got it to such a stable place and hired so many educators who were on board and like dope. I put my sons in there.
I think that's dope, man. I love it.
That's the seal of approval right there.
I love it. And that's the thing, right? Ray would say that a lot on A Black Parents, right? Like he's like, yo, my kids went to my school. So why don't you wrap us into final thoughts, David? I love this, but I'm glad you decided to stay and taking your shoes off, Jubilee. You know what I'm saying? Like now, just for the record, ain't nobody gonna be getting you your drinks no more. You know where the kitchen is. You know where the refrigerator is.
I like the service. It was great.
It's over. It's over. Not only is the service over, but you about to get chores.
Wow.
I think, for closing thoughts, I would just say we should be very observant. We should be cautious about this current wave of school choice. I believe that the intentions are not where they need to be. I think this is it's more like anti-government than pro-child, in my opinion. I think when I see people like the House of Representatives Speaker Kevin McCarthy with in front of a bunch of black children, I'm like, you don't know any black kids, celebrating School Choice Week. I'm like, that's suspect. And I think, when we talk about school choice and we talk about all of these things, I always think about start and finish. What does this mean for Latino children? What does this mean for Black children? What does this mean for low income children? What does this mean for foster children? What does it mean for special education children, unhoused students? And the less coordination you have across any kind of schools, even within a district, the first children to fall through the cracks are those children. So until I hear a logical argument from a Republican governor that authentically can put together a speech that speaks to those things, I'm going to remain suspect, even though I think it might help some kids out. Overall, I think it's doing more harm, and you're creating losers, and those losers, they're Black, they're brown, special education, unhoused, foster kids, unless I see data to show me otherwise. I think some people have good intentions, but I remain suspect. That's my verdict.
Ms. Branson.
Okay. Well, what do we have here? Listen, I'm with anything that's going to support our babies and help them to be the bright and beautiful people that they are. I'm with school choice, but I'm also with the parallel of fixing what is broken, going to the root and addressing that. And for me, what I would love to be able to say is we eliminated the need for school choice because across the nation, we got some bomb-ass schools, period. So for me, like, can we get to a place where we don't even need it? Because no matter what your zip code is, I know it's idealistic and all of that, but it's still, I'm a dreamer, right? That you can, wherever you live, no matter what your zip code is, when you walk 2 blocks away from your front door, you're at a school that is magnificent. And that's because somebody is supporting those educators, holding them accountable, supporting leaders, holding them accountable, and building forward for what our babies need, period.
I love it. I love today's show. I hope that our guy's having a great time on whatever mountain he is conquering right now, and just loving life. He still needs to write a book, man. It's how to live. Here are 2 things that the listening public and the people doing these shows with me should know. I'm emotionally unavailable, and I am not romantic about anything, especially this education stuff. My emotional unavailability is around I don't have time to be trying to like a school apparatus. If it's great and it surprises me and we fall in love, awesome, right? But I have enough history, I have enough things that I have seen to know that school is but one apparatus in ensuring that your children get the type of education they need. Do they have good mentors around them? Do they have a good moral standing? Do they have a thing that's teaching them about their health and fitness? Do they have clubs and hobbies? Like, it would behoove you, if you look like me, if you look like David, and if you look like Jubilee, and if you don't make 10x of what all of us make together, it would behoove you to not put all your eggs in that basket. I am unromantic about the vision of us and quality schools skipping under the Eiffel Tower because we're just in bliss and in love and they just are so good. It has never happened. It has not happened in mass in history. And I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer. What I'm saying is that there's a lot of rhetoric that's floating around, whether it's for pro school choice, anti-school choice. I don't care about none of these people. I just don't. I'll sit and talk with anybody. And I don't mean that disrespectfully, right? Like, what happens in David's house is what happens in David's house. We work together. I'm his friend. I love him and I care about him. But some stuff ain't my business, nor is it my concern. When he and his wife are arguing about what to do with their child, that is their conversation. I know my place, and I'm here as a loving, helping hand if he should so need me. But I know my place. What I'm saying is this, man. when these people that got different situations set up from yours are trying to convince you on anything and all this stuff, you don't need to love these schools. You don't need to love these people. You simply need these things to work. You simply need these things to operate the way that they tell you that they're going to operate, and you need the power that if it is not, to get rid of it. If the stop light is no longer working, then you got to get it down and put a stop sign up there. You got to do something, because you're the person that has to cross through that intersection every day. Your loved ones are the people that's crossing through that intersection every day. This is not just an ideological, political conversation about ideas. Children die. People die. People get put on tracks that lead them to jail, that lead to families not being together. And so this is far too important to just be relegated to a week or to some political points that these people are making. And I honor and I respect anybody, any group, any pod, any race that has come together and took their education in their own hands, whether it be homeschooling or pods or working in conjunction with these schools, or what the Asian folks in my community in Chinatown did in Oakland, where they had school, Lincoln Elementary, which always does pretty well. They have mostly Asian educators. They have a mostly Asian populace of students, but those kids are also required to go to Chinese school at least every day after school or all day on the weekend. I have pride and honor the Arabic folks in my community that are like doing this stuff with us on these schools. And let me tell you, the history in Oakland, the people that's not from there will rock with you for a little bit. They will see if you got your stuff together, and then they will go build their own stuff, you know. But I've been in those. I've had my first students were from that community, and they always had something culturally that they were putting on top of their kids and not leaving all their faith there. And so I love this conversation. I think we need to keep going. I love my host. I love that we was having that we went there. I hopefully it was entertaining, but I hope what you walk away with is at the end of the day, you the only one that got to live with the consequences that come from your child and your community having to have these bunk ass schools. You have been listening to another episode of the South Star Classroom. Omar is out living his best life, bungee cording, the jumping. You know, he might say that's the white part of him. We got Jubilee, who is now here, you know what I'm saying, with us, kicking it. I know you'll be in and out, but your seat will always be warm. You come on whenever you need to. And the beard of knowledge, the beard of wisdom, David Castillo, I'm a leaf off his tree. And a lot of people don't know this because David is so subdued and so calm. And I know I come off as the rah-rah one. David is probably one of the people, him, Jorge Lopez, and maybe Dirk Tillis, and those three people are three of the people that I've seen stand up, make the most noise, that have pissed off everybody on the traditional side, charter side, and private side, the unions, the way that it should be. I've seen that man fight for quality with black kids, brown kids, and whomever, and he just does it with a cool little, he don't raise his voice. He's just smooth, man. That dude just smooth like wine. But that's David Castillo, and I'm just humbled as Charles to be on with y'all. You see y'all next week, same bat time, same bat station. Peace out.